Welcome to Le Weekend, your essential roundup of French news on culture, business, the economy, and current affairs. We bring you a convenient way to catch up on the stories from the past week in France, plus an additional focus feature blending reportage and cultural context. You'll find a seamless recap of the week's most important headlines without losing any content from our previous daily format, perfect for those who want to catch up in just one episode. Le Weekend is designed to keep you informed and engaged with a lighter touch at the end. Let's dive in. These are the headlines for Monday, May 18th. France is to probe Khashoggi's killing after a complaint against a Saudi crown prince. A Paris judge will investigate the 2018 assassination of Saudi dissident journalist Jamal Khashoggi after rights groups filed a complaint against Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, according to French sources cited by AFP as reported by RFI. A major blow to the French hotel industry. 3 luxury hotels lose their palace status. For the first time since 2010, the commission responsible for awarding the prestigious distinction has withdrawn it from 3 hotels, all of which will be downgraded to 5 stars. Serge Papin, Minister of Tourism, will unveil the new Palace Collection 2026 on June 2nd, as reported by Le Figaro. A number of historic buildings in Normandy's Honfleur coast are on the verge of collapse. Along the port city's old harbor, 2 evacuated buildings threaten to bring down others with them. Traffic is banned and 19 businesses have shuttered. The lack of maintenance and alterations made by owners of seasonal renters are being blamed, as reported by Le Monde. Tuesday, May 19th. The 2027 edition of Le Petit Robert, one of France's most widely used dictionaries, has added 150 words and expressions that reflect new trends shaping French language and society, from AI to globalization, as reported by RFI. President Donald Trump will attend the G7 summit in France in June. The leaders of the G7, Germany, Canada, the US, France, Italy, Japan, and the United Kingdom, are due to meet from June 15th to 17th in the spa town of Evian, as reported by Le Figaro. Pope Leo will visit France in September in his first official papal trip in 18 years. The Vatican announced he will travel to France for an official state visit from September 25th to the 28th and will visit the Paris headquarters of UNESCO, as reported by RFI. The headlines on Wednesday, May 20th. Media group Canal Plus threatens to boycott the signatories of an anti-Bolloré op-ed. In the midst of the Cannes Film Festival, the film industry is in turmoil following an open letter signed by 600 professionals denouncing Vincent Bolloré's control over cinema. Maxime Sada, head of the Canal Plus Media Group, has announced he no longer wishes to work with the signatories, as reported by France 24. Dominique de Villepin is the target of a financial prosecutor's investigation for receiving stolen public funds. The former foreign minister had allegedly accepted valuable statuettes paid for in particular by Blaise Compaoré, then president of Burkina Faso, as gifts when he was at the French Foreign Ministry, as reported by France 24. The Louvre Grand Colonnade architecture competition was won by an international partnership between Studios Architecture Paris and Seldorf Architects. After a 3-month delay, France's Ministry of Culture has finally unveiled the winning project in the competition to create a new entrance on the museum's eastern facade, as well as a gallery dedicated entirely to the Mona Lisa, as reported by Le Monde. These are the headlines on Thursday, May 21st. Concerning the Rio-Paris crash in 2009, Airbus and Air France were convicted on appeal of involuntary manslaughter by the Paris Court of Appeal with a maximum penalty, namely a fine of 225,000 euros each, at the end of the trial for the flight crash which killed 228 people in 2009. Airbus announced it will appeal to the Court of Cassation, as reported by France 24. The Pont Neuf was entirely covered on Thursday by an inflatable structure 18 meters high and 120 meters long. The Pont Neuf was entirely covered on Thursday, May 21st, by an inflatable structure 18 meters high and 120 meters long. French street artist J.R. wrapped the famous Parisian landmark in homage to an installation by late French artist Christo and his wife Jean-Claude in 1985, as reported by France Info. The headlines on Friday, May 22nd. President Macron released an additional 1.55 billion euros for quantum and semiconductor technologies, drawn from the France 2030 investment program. The president is also expected to commit to allocating further funding for a future European program for semiconductors, as reported by France 24. To attract manufacturers, France is counting on 200 new turnkey sites. The program relies on land availability and the speed with which permits are obtained to attract industrial projects, as reported by Le Figaro. High consumption of food dyes may be linked to increased risk of type 2 diabetes and cancer. A French research team is conducting the first large-scale epidemiological study documenting the link between food color additives and chronic disease risks, as reported by Le Monde. You are listening to Le Weekend. And now that you're all caught up with the news from the past week, it's time for our bonus story. Today we look at why a 2009 plane crash made the news this week. In the small hours of June 1st, 2009, an Airbus A330 carrying 228 people from Rio de Janeiro to Paris vanished from radar screens over the South Atlantic. The aircraft crashed into the Atlantic Ocean at around 02:14 local time during a storm, killing all 12 crew members and 216 passengers, who were of 33 nationalities. There were no survivors. It remains, to this day, the deadliest aviation disaster in French history. And for 17 years, the question of who bore criminal responsibility for those deaths went unanswered. On May 21st, the Paris Court of Appeal delivered its verdict. The court found Air France and Airbus solely and entirely responsible for the deaths of all 228 people on board and imposed the maximum corporate fine of 225,000 euros on each company, calling the accident a foretold catastrophe that could have been prevented had known risks, including pilot tube icing and inadequate pilot training, been addressed sooner. The ruling overturned a 2023 acquittal and marked the first criminal conviction in a legal battle that had consumed nearly 2 decades. To understand why this verdict matters so much and why it took so long, we have to go back to the night the plane disappeared. On the early morning of June 1st, 2009, Air France Flight 447 was cruising at flight level 350, approximately 35,000 feet, over the Atlantic Ocean, having departed from Rio de Janeiro bound for Paris. The Airbus A330 was carrying 216 passengers and 12 crew, including Captain Marc Dubois, First Officer Pierre-Cédric Bonin, and Relief Pilot First Officer David Robert. At 0202 UTC, Captain Dubois left the flight deck and headed to the crew rest area, leaving First Officer Bonin as pilot flying and First Officer Robert as pilot non-flying. What happened next unfolded in just over 4 minutes, although the chain of events that led to it stretched back years.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Imagine being in the boardroom with the world's most influential C-suite executives, exploring big questions about the economy, AI, and hybrid work. Welcome to C-Suite Perspectives, hosted by Steve Odland, President and CEO of the Conference Board, the ultimate podcast for professionals seeking the truth beyond trending headlines. Cut through the noise and dive into data-driven discussions, unbiased, nonpartisan, and straight from the top. Listen to C-Suite Perspectives and harness the power of trusted insights for what's ahead.
The French Accident Investigation Agency, BEA, concluded in its 2012 final report that the tragedy stemmed from a combination of technical and human factors. At cruise altitude over the mid-Atlantic, the aircraft pitot probes iced over, causing inconsistent airspeed data. The autopilot disconnected as designed, leaving the crew to hand fly in turbulent conditions. While transiting the intertropical convergence zone, Flight 447 flew through powerful bands of convective thunderstorms within cumulonimbus clouds. During this time, the aircraft encountered a period of turbulence followed by icing conditions and hail. The aircraft's 3 pitot probes, the external sensors that measure airspeed, iced over, and the cascading consequences proved fatal. The French Accident Investigation Agency, BEA, concluded in its 2012 final report that the tragedy stemmed from a combination of technical and human factors. At cruise altitude over the mid-Atlantic, the aircraft pilot probes iced over, causing inconsistent airspeed data. The autopilot disconnected as designed, leaving the crew to manual fly in turbulent conditions. The pilot flying pulled the nose up, causing the jet to climb, lose speed, and stall. As the BEA wrote, the crew never understood that they were in a stall situation and consequently never applied a recovery maneuver. The stall alarm sounded 75 times. Throughout, Bonin kept pulling back on the stick, the exact opposite of what was required to recover from the stall. The aircraft fell from the sky in 4 minutes and 24 seconds. The plane vanished from radar screens, and while the Brazilian Navy recovered some wreckage in the immediate aftermath, the black boxes were not retrieved until 2011, following a deep-sea search covering 10,000 square kilometers. The final resting place of Flight 447 was discovered on April 2011 at a depth of 3,980 meters. Just over 13,000 feet. BEA's 224-page final report indicated that the aircraft might have been flown out of danger if the pilots had realized the situation they were facing. The investigators identified a sequence of compounding failures rather than a single cause. Investigators cited human and technical factors for the crash. The Airbus A330 speed sensors, the pitot tubes, may have frozen over, giving false readings. After the crash, Air France conducted a fleet-wide replacement of the suspect sensors. But the BEA's findings pointed beyond the cockpit. The two co-pilots who were in the cockpit had no training in manual aircraft handling at high altitude. This was not an individual failure, it was a systemic one. The prosecution at trial would later argue that both Air France and Airbus had been aware of the vulnerability of the pitot tubes to icing and had failed to act decisively enough, and that there was absence of training at high altitude in manual airplane handling and the procedure relating to speed indication anomalies. Following the investigation, the BEA issued 41 safety recommendations to the DGAC, EASA, the FAA, ICAO, and Brazilian aviation authorities. The legal case that followed the crash became one of the most protracted in French aviation history. French magistrates initially examined the evidence over many years. In 2019, they dismissed the case, finding insufficient evidence to prosecute. The families of victims refused to accept this outcome and pursued an appeal, ultimately forcing a formal trial. The trial ran from October to December 2022. In a striking development, French magistrates initially dismissed the case in 2019, saying there was insufficient evidence to prosecute. Families appeal, leading to this 2022 trial in which prosecutors themselves argued conviction was impossible. Both companies denied the charges throughout. In April 2023, the lower court delivered its verdict. A Paris court acquitted French plane manufacturer Airbus and national carrier Air France of involuntary manslaughter. The court ruled that neither company could be held responsible for the crash of the Airbus A330-200. The judges said that even if errors had been committed, no certain link of causality between those mistakes and the accident could be proven. Outside the courtroom, the grief and anger of families who had waited nearly 14 years was raw and immediate. Philippe Languet, who lost his brother Pascal in the crash and serves as vice president of the victims group Entraide et Solidarité AF447, called it a day of infamy, mourning, sadness, and shame. The Paris Public Prosecutor's Office sought an appeal. Under the French legal system, this was not a conventional appeal. The appeal involved a completely new trial with all evidence reviewed from scratch. On May 21st, this week, 2026, the Paris Court of Appeal delivered its ruling. The decision reversed the lower court's acquittal from 2023. The appeals court determined that both the French flag carrier and Europe's largest aerospace manufacturer bore sole and entire responsibility for the crash of flight Air France 447. The court's language was striking. Where the lower court has struggled to establish a causal chain between negligence and disaster, the appeals court drew a direct line. The court labeled the accident a foretold catastrophe, a phrase that cuts to the heart of the prosecution's case, that the risks were known, that the warnings existed, and that the deaths were preventable. The fines imposed, €225,000 each, the maximum available, have been widely dismissed as a token penalty. For companies of the scale of Airbus and Air France, the sums represent a matter of minutes of revenue. The symbolic and legal weight of the conviction, however, is of a different order. Airbus responded quickly. In a statement from Toulouse, Airbus acknowledged the judgment and expressed its deepest sympathies and unwavering support to the families and loved ones of the victims of this tragic accident. From the outset, Airbus stated it has pursued a constant objective to understand the facts, to seek the truth, to draw all necessary lessons, act responsibly to continue improving aviation safety. The company also pushed back on the legal logic of the ruling. Airbus noted that the decision contradicts the submissions of the Public Prosecutor's Office and the conclusions of the dismissal order issued by the investigating judges in 2019, as well as the submissions of the public prosecution at first instance and the acquittal judgment delivered in 2023. Both companies confirmed they would pursue further appeals. Airbus confirmed it will appeal to the Cour de Cassation, France's highest court for criminal matters. Crucially, the Cour de Cassation will not revisit the facts of the crash. Instead, it will examine whether the appeals court correctly applied French law. It may uphold the conviction, annul it, or send the case back for another retrial. French victims' associations welcomed the ruling as a long-awaited recognition of corporate responsibility. For the families who have spent 17 years navigating a legal system that acquitted, then convicted, and may yet reverse again the verdict, is both a vindication and a reminder of how incomplete justice can feel. For now, the 2026 ruling stands as a landmark moment in European aviation law, a rare criminal conviction in a case defined by technical complexity, legal uncertainty, and the persistent efforts of families seeking accountability. The Cour de Cassation's decision, when it comes, will determine whether it stays that way. Thank you for listening to Le Weekend, your one-stop destination for the main headlines in France. Catch our weekly roundup every weekend wherever you get your podcasts. Stay informed.